So Superman and Lois. Well, they came back after a hiatus of some amount of time, which I think hurts these shows. I mean, at the outset, there was the problem with, the lockdowns and everything causing trouble. But this time around, I don't know. It's just the way they do the shows on broadcast television still. I don't know. But it's like you can lose traction and people forget. There's too many other offerings out there, and you could lose your momentum. Because Superman and Lois remains one of the better shows out there. It's nothing overly spectacular or genius, what have you, but it's a well produced little package there of a show. And so this was no different for this episode, where we got to go to Bizarro World. And I was not expecting, I guess I should have expected this. But we last saw Superman disappear through the portal, and then the alternate Jonathan shows up, dressed up like Superboy from the Reign of Superman, and that's just a nod to it in this. But so we get the backstory of the whole other world, and it's not the Shadow World, it's Bizarro World. Superman goes through, he arrives there, and he's like, it's all different, but it's still, Earth, or so it seems. And he's at the Smallville farm, and it all looks dilapidated, like something terrible has happened. And he flies up into orbit and looks back at the Earth, and it's square. Which is, of course, the old Bizarro story, that Bizarro Superman found his own world to live on, and he found a square world, of course. So this is this other universe. So it's like, well, the gravitational forces are such that planets form into cubes rather than balls. So. But it's a cool nod to classic Superman and stuff like that. And it's just like he's looking at, what the hell, and then he goes back down, and it's under a red sun, so he's slowly losing his powers. And it's interesting that they do it like this, and hopefully they're consistent with this if they do this sort of thing later. Although they haven't been, because he's been in prison, and they put him under red sun, solar lamps, or what have you, which diminishes his powers. But I always thought it would take some time. I mean, the basic with Superman powers is that he stored the solar radiation within his body's cells, and that's the source of his superpowers. I've also thought that the source of his strength, maybe the super duper strength, but he's still going to be basically stronger than the average guy because of living on a larger planet that, like Krypton was, that through evolution his musculature and skeletal structure is much stronger to live under that amount of gravity and stuff like that. That would go a long way to explain that. So that even if he loses his other superpowers of super speed and flight and heat vision and all that stuff, he'd still be a lot stronger than the average guy. But then again, he might get sick or what have you, or certainly kryptonite is going to lay him low and that sort of thing. But in this story, of course, he's flying around with it, but he's getting weaker as he goes because he's not able to replenish the energy he's using up. And I guess another possible explanation this would be in the other stories, like the direct dose or something of red, but he goes out in orbit, so he's getting a full-on dose of the red sun that the red sun negates his and saps it up faster or something like that, which would explain being captured and put into a prison cell that has red solar lamps on him and all that. But anyway, that's just one of those observations, because for the course of the story, he has to retain some of his powers. But what they do here is they give you a tour of the alternate world, and they give you background for each of the characters involved, more or less. Certainly, the family gets a showcase, and Jonathan is in front and center rather than Jordan. Jordan gets more attention in these stories typically, but in this version of it, his powers have not developed. It's the opposite. So Jonathan's powers have manifested first, and he's losing his faith in his father. He thinks that his father in that world was becoming too obsessed with his own celebrity, and they're celebrities. Everybody knows who they are and all this stuff, and so and he's taking selfies with people and stuff like that. And some guy falls out of a building, and so Superboy has to rise to the occasion, and all of that. And so then they're sort of a team, and they show that scenes where it's father and son being superheroes. And but then evil Allison recruits Superboy through a girlfriend of his, and he joins the cult. So he's been a bad guy all this time. And meanwhile, in order to keep up, apparently Superman was doing drugs. Well, the XK, well, not XK, kryptonite, because in his world, in his version, it actually empowers him or gives him higher boosts of energy or whatnot. And that's more similar to Ultraman, the evil Superman from Earth 3 and that sort of thing. I don't recall any of that having to do with Bizarro. It's just Bizarro was immune to green kryptonite, but blue kryptonite would kill him. So in this case, they're saying the X kryptonite hurts him, but green kryptonite doesn't. But apparently green kryptonite gives him a high. But that's why he looked the way he did when he arrived, which was to make him look like the classic Bizarro, more or less. But basically, he's deteriorating under this drug abuse, really. So the family falls apart and all that stuff, but he's still trying to fight off Allison, but he's such a mess. She even recruits his brother in this version of it, and they gave the background, the whole story of Morgan Edge. I don't guess he ever even took the Morgan Edge identity, but nevertheless, they get along great. They're fine, and everything's cool. And then he ends up dating Lana, and I guess they get married. I don't know. And now she's developed superpowers, probably through the XK stuff and all that. And so that's it. So they give that background and stuff. And so everyone's turned on him. And there's this battle at the end. The only one to come to aid. I mean, well, this is the backstory. Of course, he's dead now. So we now have the real Superman there. And he's trying to defeat this crazy cult. And turns out fallen General Anderson has to rise to the occasion and realizes he was so wrong. He nearly merged with his other self, but Superboy killed him with his dragon breath. And so he was keeping the amulets and using his XK powers, and ended up having to fight off Superboy to protect Superman and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, the two Allisons are merging. They get the amulets and they start merging, and then they tell Superboy to go back to the other world and merge with his alternate there, and that's where they leave it. And Superman still stuck and all that. So this is probably more of the adventure side of Superman. You get more of that. It looks like they ran a little low on the money, unfortunately, because some of the effects looked a little cheap, especially the fight between Superboy and Anderson, or was it Mitchell? I can't even remember the guy's name, but that was Sam Lane's replacement, and then he went nuts, but he ends up making amends and redeeming himself and apologizing to Superman and all that. But he's dead now. So, but he died a hero, so there's that. But still, that was probably the most of superhero action in this show, because I said, you get some of that through this show, which is good. They've managed to spread that out enough to where the soap opera stuff doesn't drag you down and you get dulled out by it and don't want to deal with it. They've managed that so far so good through these shows, because that's typical of the CW shows. They're just soap operas, and not just soap operas, but repetitive ones. The same old conversations, the same. You lied to me, and I don't trust myself anymore. You've got this girl. No, I don't. That kind of crap. But there's none of that here. So the characters can grow. They learn from whatever conflicts they had in past episodes. You can't go back to it and do it again because that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so there was some silliness here, but it was fun. It was fun stuff and cool nods to Superman. And so the Bizarro World episode. So the show just keeps delivering. Anyway, there we go. Superman and Lois.